continue with The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. So, the subheading is called The Responsibility slash Fault Fallacy. Okay? Let's dive into it. Years ago, when I was much younger and stupider, I wrote a blog post, and at the end of it, I said something like, quote, and as a great philosopher once said, with great power comes great responsibility, unquote. It sounded nice and authoritative. Authoritative. Yeah, I think that's how it is pronounced. I couldn't remember who had said it, and my Google search had turned up nothing, but I stuck it in there anyway. It fit the post nicely. About 10 minutes later, the first comment came in. Quote, I think the great philosopher you're referring to is Uncle Ben from the movie Spider-Man. Unquote. As another great philosopher once said, comma, Tao, unquote. Or quote unquote. With great power comes great responsibility. The last words of Uncle Ben before a thief whom Peter Parker let get away murders him on a sidewalk full of people for absolutely no explicable reason. That great philosopher. Well, I think I heard this quote anyway, this phrase. Okay, we could maybe check that out later on. Someone from my viewers, guys, you can check that on Google, maybe ask an AI who is the author of the following quote: with great power comes great responsibility. Let's see what AI has to say about it. Still, we've all heard the quote. It gets repeated a lot, usually ironically and after about 7 beers. It's one of those perfect quotes that sound really intelligent, and yet it's basically just telling you what you already know, even if you've never quite thought about the matter before. With great power comes great responsibility. Uh, Narek Hakopian says Armenian content is starting to become rare. I don't think so, Narek. And what do you mean? On my channel, on YouTube, globally, or what do you mean? It is true, but there's a better version of this quote, a version that actually is profound. And all you have to do is switch the nouns around. With great responsibility comes great power. Mhm. Okay, he twisted the thing. That's interesting. The more we choose to accept responsibility in our lives, the more power we will exercise over our lives. That makes sense. Yeah. It's intelligent, it's smart, it's reasonable, rational. Accepting responsibility for our problems is thus the first step to solving them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Reese says Jack Black. I don't know what you mean. Guys, likes, okay, send likes my way if you enjoy me reading this book for you. I once knew a man who was convinced that the reason no woman would date him was because he was too short. He was educated, interesting, and good looking. A good catch in principle. But he was absolutely convinced that women found him too short to date. Poor guy. Uh, Poor not because he was short, but because of his, thoughts and fears. Yeah. And because he felt that he was too short, he didn't often go out and try to meet women. The few times he did, he would hone in on the smallest behaviors from any woman he talked with that could possibly indicate he wasn't attractive enough for her, and then convince himself that she didn't like him, even if she really did. As you can imagine, his dating life sucked. Yeah, before moving on, I think I'll comment this one. Hi, Dylan. Hi there. How are you? And Narek says, but I appreciate your work because an intellectual remains an intellectual, whether in English or Armenian. Thank you, Narek. Okay, you mean my content in Armenian is becoming rare. Okay, and Dylan says he's good. Yeah, Narek-chan, now I'm in LA and maybe I'll make some lives eventually in Armenian too, but also this is an English teacher, in English teaching channel, right? How are you? I'm fine, Dylan. Thanks for asking. Guys, please send likes my way. Narek, Dylan, and others. Okay. For now, I see 0 likes on my live. Yeah, I had something like this actually because of my extra weight. I thought, well, I'm not really attractive, and because of my hair falling, yeah, a hair loss problem. I thought, well, maybe guys don't find me attractive. Um, but then also some marks, stretching marks. I think they are called something like that. I had those when I got a lot of extra weight very fast after I went through disease and wrong bad treatment. My parents basically chose to send me to a shaman lady instead of seeing a doctor in 90s in the Republic of Armenia. So I had those complexes, those fears as well. But when I accepted myself the way I was, when I connected with reality, my sex life also improved a lot. I had very interesting and beautiful and amazing partners of different sexualities, gay men, bisexual men, some straight men, some of them married. So when you connect with reality, when you accept yourself the way you are, when you and Dylan says like, thank you, Dylan. I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Yeah, that improves the quality of your life immensely. So accepting yourself, learning about yourself, your body, your mind, how things work, um, how the universe works, how your body works, how relationships work. So more you learn about everything, more you become comfortable with life, and you start seeing, you start building results for yourself. Okay, let's continue with the book. What he didn't realize was that he had chosen the value that was hurting him: height. Ah, women, he assumed, are attracted only to height. Hmm. He was screwed no matter what he did. Yeah, 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 yeah. The metric, yeah, that comes based on the value. Hmm. This choice of value was disempowering. It gave this man a really crappy problem. Not being tall enough in a world meant, in his view, for tall people. There are far better values that he could have adopted in his dating life. I want to date only women who like me for who I am. Might have been a nice place to start. A metric that assesses the values of honesty and acceptance. Yep. But he did not choose these values. He likely wasn't even aware that he was choosing his value or could do so. Even though he didn't realize it, he was responsible for his own problems. Yep, and yep. Amen to this. Dylan says, how often do you stream? Dylan, I stream almost every day. Almost. Sometimes I take some breaks, but you can subscribe to my channel. You can also go to the live tab and you'll see all the previous streaming sessions where I was reading this book. Okay, they're all available. Also in the playlists tab, I have a new playlist with the title of the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. You can also go through the playlist. Okay, yeah. Oh yes, another person liked the stream. Thank you. I appreciate. Guys, doesn't matter when you watch this live right now, days after it has ended, months after it. Likes, comments are very welcome. You help my page. I give you my time, my voice, yeah, my intonation. You're making the reading sessions interesting. I give you knowledge, so you can give me back. You can give me likes, comments, shares, super likes, and there are also paid subscription options on my YouTube channel, with which doesn't matter which level you choose, you will unlock a course on this YouTube channel, entitled Practical Introduction to Practical Philosophy. You'll discover what philosophy is, you'll discover the philosophy of objectivism, the basics, and it will be very good for your mental processes, for your personal and mental development and growth. Okay. Okay, thank you, Dylan says. My pleasure, Dylan. Thank you for your time, your likes, and your comments. I appreciate that. And also for paid subscribers, there is a super chat. I think it's called super chat, if I'm not mistaken. It's a special kind of VIP kind of chat where you write and other users won't see your comments. Okay, it will give you some more privacy and you will know that you're supporting me. Okay, despite the responsibility, he went on complaining. But I don't have a choice, he would tell the bartender. There's nothing I can do. Women are superficial and vain and will never like me. Yes, it's every single woman's fault for not liking a self pitying, shallow guy with shitty values. Obviously. A lot of people hesitate to take responsibility for their problems because they believe that to be responsible for your problems is to also be at fault for your problems. Responsibility and fault often appear together in our culture, but they're not the same thing. If I hit you with my car, I am both at fault and likely legally responsible to compensate you in some way. Even if hitting you with my car was an accident, I am still responsible. This is the way fault works in our society. If you fuck up, you're on the hook for making it right. And it should be that way. But there are also problems that we aren't at fault for, yet we are still responsible for them. For example, if you woke up one day and there was a newborn baby on your doorstep, it would not be your fault that the baby had been put there, but the baby would now be your responsibility. Hmm? You would have to choose what to do. And whatever you ended up choosing, keeping it, getting rid of it, ignoring it, feeding it to a pit bull, oh my god, there would be problems associated with your choice. And you would be responsible for those as well. Judges don't get to choose their cases. When a case goes to court, the judge assigned to it did not commit the crime, was not a witness to the crime, and was not affected by the crime. But he or she is still responsible for the crime. The judge must then choose the consequences. He or she must identify the metric against which the crime will be measured and make sure that the chosen metric is carried out. We are responsible for experiences that aren't our fault all the time. This is part of life. Here's one way to think about the distinction between the two concepts. Fault is past tense. Responsibility is present tense. Fault results from choices that have already been made. Responsibility results from the choices you're currently making every second of the every day. You are choosing to read this. You are choosing to think about the concepts. You are choosing to accept or reject the concepts. It may be my fault that you think my ideas are lame, but you are responsible for coming to your own conclusions. It's not your fault that I chose to write this sentence, but you are still responsible for choosing to read it or not. There's a difference between blaming someone else for your situation and that person's actually being responsible for your situation. Nobody else is ever responsible for your situation but you. Many people may be to blame for your unhappiness, but nobody is ever responsible for your unhappiness but you. Amen. Amen. I'll read this again, guys. This is very useful. Okay. Many people may be to blame for your unhappiness, but nobody is ever responsible for your unhappiness but you. Okay? This is because you always get to choose how you see things, how you react to things, how you value things. You always get to choose the metric by which to measure your experience. My first, well, his first, yeah, my first girlfriend dumped me in spectacular fashion. She was cheating on me with her teacher. It was awesome. And by awesome, I mean it felt like getting punched in the stomach about 253 times. To make things worse, when I confronted her about it, she promptly left me for him. 3 years together, down the toilet, just like that. I was miserable for months afterward. That was to be expected, but I also held her responsible for my misery, which, take it from me, didn't get me very far. It just made the misery worse. See, I couldn't control her. No matter how many times I called her, or screamed at her, or begged her to take me back, or made surprise visits to her place, or did other creepy and irrational ex boyfriend things, I could never control her emotions or her actions. Ultimately, while she was to blame for how I felt, she was never responsible for how I felt. I was. At some point, after enough tears and alcohol, my thinking began to shift and I began to understand that although she had done something horrible to me and she could be blamed for that, it was now my own responsibility to make myself happy again. She was never going to pop up and fix things for me. I had to fix them for myself. When I took that approach, a few things happened. First, I began to improve myself. I started exercising and spending more time with my friends, whom I had been neglecting. I started deliberately meeting new people. I took a big study abroad trip and did some volunteer work, and slowly I started to feel better. I still resented my ex for what she had done, but at least now I was taking responsibility for my own emotions. And by doing so, I was choosing better values. Values aimed at taking care of myself, learning to feel better about myself, rather than aimed at getting her to fix what she's broken. By the way, this whole holding her responsible for my emotions thing is probably part of why she left in the first place. More on that in a couple chapters. Then, about a year later, something funny began to happen. As I looked back on our relationship, I started to notice problems I had never noticed before. Problems that I was to blame for and I could have done something to solve. I realized that it was likely that I hadn't been a great boyfriend, and that people don't just magically cheat on somebody they've been with unless they are unhappy for some reason. I'm not saying that this excused what my ex did, not at all, but recognizing my mistakes helped me to realize that I perhaps hadn't been the innocent victim I'd believed myself to be. That I had a role to play in enabling the shitty relationship to continue for as long as it did. After all, people who date each other tend to have more similar values. And if I dated someone with shitty values for that long, what did that say about me and my values? I learned the hard way that if the people in your relationships are selfish and doing hurtful things, it's likely you are too. You just don't realize it. In hindsight, I was able to look back and see warning signs of my ex girlfriend's character, signs I had chosen to ignore or brush off when I was with her. That was my fault. I could look back and see that I hadn't exactly been the boyfriend of the year to her either. In fact, I had often been cold and arrogant toward her. Other times I took her for granted and blew her off and hurt her. These things were my fault too. Did my mistakes justify her mistake? No, but still, I took on the responsibility of never making those same mistakes again and never overlooking the same signs again to help guarantee that I would never suffer the same consequences again. I took on the responsibility of striving to make my future relationships with women that much better. And I'm happy to report that I have. No more cheating girlfriends leaving me. No more 253 stomach punches. I took responsibility for my problems and improved upon them. I took responsibility for my role in that unhealthy relationship and improved upon it with later relationships. And you know what? My ex leaving me, while one of the most painful experiences I've ever had, was also one of the most important and influential experiences in my life. I credit it with inspiring a significant amount of personal growth. I learned more from that single problem than dozens of my successes combined. We all love to take responsibility for success and happiness. Hell, we often fight over who gets to be responsible for success and happiness. But taking responsibility for our problems is far more important because that's where the real learning comes from. That's where the real life improvement comes from. To simply blame others is only to hurt yourself. Again, this sentence is good. To simply blame others is only to hurt yourself. Period. Okay? That's it. I love this. This was very good. I loved this little chapter as well. I think I will recommend this to a family member who goes through hardships in his personal life right now. This was very good. And this made me think of my relationship as well. I think I will share that with you as well. And let's see if we'll take another small subheading from the book or not. Next one is called Responding to Tragedy. Yeah. So I met this guy mm, in 2019 and we've had a relationship. I think we were together for around, no, maybe I met him in 2018 and maybe 2.5 years we were kind of together. It was hard uh, because he was much younger than me and he didn't think of himself as gay or even bi, at the time. So he was, I think he was kind of, shall I say, blaming me or uh, thinking that this was something unusual. Of course, it was all consensual. He was an adult. Yeah, he was 18 years old when we met and stuff. But this was unexpected, neither for me nor for him. We had good times together as well. When I worked in China, I bought a ticket for him. I paid for his visa application. I even sent him money to buy himself a bag, a travel luggage bag. Yeah. So we kind of had our honeymoon. Although at that point we were together for maybe around a year or so. In China, we had our honeymoon, and it was like this, sometimes like this, and then sometimes like that. Yeah, ups and downs were sometimes crazy. And I remember, at times after work, I wouldn't go home so that I wouldn't see his face. Within 2 months, the first month, I think that happened within the first month too, but we stayed in China together for 2 months in Beijing. So I would go and sit on a bench at a public park, which was next door. Yeah, kind of. And I would sit there for several extra hours until I felt very cold. It was winter. It was fall, October, November, I think. So until I felt very cold or until my battery was drained. Yeah. Uh, but also again after that we made up for it. We also had another period, sweet period, yeah, in that time lapse of 2 months. I'm not sure I can blame myself for many things, and I don't think I wanna just play the blame game. I'm just analyzing. Yeah, we just read the chapter, and it's very useful to analyze instead of just receiving the information. And I invite you guys to do the same. Yeah, because that makes your growth even better. Yeah, when you analyze, when you input some stuff from your own side. So later we returned. So some of the stupid things would be, for instance, twice per week I had to wake up very early, at 7 a.m. or even 6 something a.m. I think, and I had to be there. I had to be on my workplace at 8:30, I think, by 8:30. So I would ask my boyfriend to turn down the volume, and he would refuse. I even bought him like good quality, expensive earphones, like those headphones, yeah. And sometimes he just didn't use them. He had the option to, but he just didn't. So I don't know. Maybe it's the trauma, it's the fear, uh, but we had little things over that. Once I got very angry, I just took his phone and threw that away. And the apartment I rented was, what is it called? When it has 2 stories, loft. It was a loft, and the bedroom part was on the second floor. So the phone just fell from the second floor. It cracked. Fortunately, it worked, and of course, I was ready to buy him a new phone, in case if something happened to the old one. But fortunately, it worked. Gosh. So at some point, I was trying to, keep the relationship. I think I'm commenting on this to talk about that ex-boyfriend stuff, yeah, that Mark mentioned in the book. Uh, wha- Long story short, he overstayed in China. We didn't know that he was allowed to stay only for 30 days. He remained in China for 2 months because there was another number of days given to him in his passport, which stated 90 days. Um, Unfortunately, he could have stayed 30 days within 90 days. That was how the things worked. And he was arrested, he was detained. In China, that's a communist republic, people just disappear. He just disappeared, you know. And I asked the authorities to arrest me with him so that I could accompany him the whole time because he was all alone. He was 18 years old. It was so painful. I was ready to pay the fine. We went to the airport, and at the airport, they told me, no, you cannot leave the country. First, you need to go to the city center, to the, I don't remember what that place was called. We went there, we stayed there, then policemen came. They took us to a police department for several hours. We stayed there, and at some point, they told me to leave. They said I could return later, and then it turned out that I couldn't. They just refused to open the door for me. And the poor guy was left all alone. And it was horrible. It was horrible for him and for me. Um, for 2 weeks, he was detained, and there were no news. I called everyone I knew. I tried to settle the matter, like I was telling. I'm ready to pay the fine, even if it's like $1,000 or $2,000. Yeah, as much as it takes, as much as I have. They were very unresponsive, and he didn't commit, a big crime. Just overstayed for 30 days in the Republic of China, in the Socialist Republic of China. Um, I when he Fortunately, the day he had a flight, he was given the right to make a phone call. He called me and he told me that he's being uh, uh, accompanied to the airport. I went there, I took his stuff, like his bags, and after that, I was very hurt. Sometimes I cried, just at night because of hopelessness. And I chose to leave China as well. I felt so hurt because of all that story, because of how, my loved one was mistreated in that country, that I had a 1 year contract and my salary was around $2,400 per month, which was very good in China. I rented my own apartment on my own salary, even though the company also rented me a free apartment for me, but my roommate was crazy. A crazy guy from Egypt. He was horrible. I think he also had problems with drugs, not just alcohol. I saw alcohol, but I think Dylan is back. Okay, welcome back, Dylan. So I just left the country. It was the 6th month of my work there. I said, I don't want to stay here anymore. I came back and I visited my boyfriend when he was ready. And COVID hit. Actually, I returned, and after several weeks, the crazy stuff started. I went to his workplace. Sometimes we talked. He would admit me, but one day he just blocked me on Facebook over some nationalistic shit. I'm anti-fascism. I'm, anti-nationalism. I don't like that stuff. And he was like more nationalistic. I was condemning some Armenian, nationalist and fascist stuff. And he was like, "Oh, you're condemning this hero, this Armenian hero." And I said, "Yes, for me, he's a criminal, not a hero." And he blocked me on Facebook. And after that, I said, "Okay, that's his choice." Sometimes, for many months, the relationship was alive in me. And at some point, it was even physical pain here, if you have watched Harry Potter, the last movie, when Voldemort was dying, and Harry was in that white space, uh, at, at times it felt like, our relationship was like that. It wasn't ugly, but it was very vulnerable, very unprotected, and something in me was saying, again, do something, talk to him, call him, go and see him. So my emotions were like, save this relationship. It's such a pity that this beautiful thing is dying. But my reason was like, no, he chose it himself. I did a lot. I paid a lot. Even when he was coming back to Armenia, I paid him extra money at the airport so that he could tell his relatives that he worked that money in China. And I said, no, I left China also, not because I was afraid for myself. I didn't have that fear. But I was very hurt because of the way my loved one was mistreated there. I came back, I visited him. At times, I would go to his workplace very late at night because he worked at night. I spent as much time with him as he allowed me to. Yes, sometimes he'd say, "Okay, that's enough. Leave now," and I would leave. Um, so some relationships are not easy to save. They are doomed, and sometimes it's beyond your control. You cannot do anything about it. Even if your essence, your body, your energy tells you, no, do something about it, you know. I had that problem, yeah. My heart and my mind, you know, basically they were giving me different messages, and it was painful. Um, but I chose to follow my mind because it made sense, you know, rationally speaking. I did a lot. I invested a lot into that relationship, not only financially, but also in terms of love, energy, time, gentleness, you know, whatever. Yeah. So sometimes, you know, even now, sometimes I remember him, and I'm like, you know, I told him at one point that I want to go to the United States, uh, and he was like, "Oh wow, cool." He kind of imagined himself there too, and I was ready to, you know, help him get here too. So now I'm in the US, in LA, and sometimes I'm thinking of that. What would it be like, yeah, if we were together and I would have him here with me? But still, I discard those ideas, and this is valuable. I discard those emotional and heartwarming ideas as impractical, as basically useless, as cut off from reality. So whoever, you know, if you go through such a problem, you know, just as my relative, uh, if you teach yourself that skill of discarding things mentally, yeah, because my heart, my emotions, again, just maybe 2 days ago, I had yet another thought. Yeah, I remembered my boyfriend. I was like, oh, he wanted to see LA too. In China, I took him to the Great Wall of China. I wouldn't have gone to see it myself because it was nothing special for me, you know. But it was one of his dreams to see the Great Wall of China, and he realized that dream with me. But again, bittersweet memories, and as they come up, you know, maybe a smile can appear on my face and I remember it, but I'm glad I choose reason over emotions. Again, it's not about oppressing my emotions, it's not about keep silent, don't dream, don't remember, you know, stay away from others, stay away from relationships. No, I'm open to new relationships, you know, but it's good that my mind tells me discard it, discard those thoughts about your ex-boyfriend, you know. um, Finally, okay, I'll confess this, and I think we'll be done for today. uh, Inside, I think I have this thought in my mind, and maybe it's an emotion, not even a thought. I'm like, okay, if he returns, if he comes back to me, I might be ready to start over everything with him. You know, uh, that makes me vulnerable. I can't say that it's the best choice, of course, but we all deserve, you know, second and third chances, given that we uh, analyze, we draw conclusions, you know, we infer, and we take something from our previous experience, you know. So this thought, you know, it's I'm playing around this thought. Okay, if in case if he returns, will I be open? And seems like the answer is yes. And I can't say that It's a good thing. Fortunately, it's not a dream. Although now that I'm thinking of it, maybe it's a dream that one day he will return. But fortunately, my mind tells me the likelihood of that is minimissimo. Yeah, it's infinitesimal. So don't dream about it. Don't think of it. Don't count on it. Don't build your life and your actions, your expectations around it. And I'm grateful that I have, those thinking skills. I'm grateful that I discovered the philosophy of objectivism, which is very individualistic, rationalist, um, free market capitalist also. Yeah, I think that's it. I shared with you, everything I had in a very honest life, guys. So I hope this helps some people. Whenever your heart is broken and you have those pain, emotions and that physical pain, it could be the chest, it could be the stomach, it could be the throat, whatever. Yeah, you have to go through it. And one of the best things you can do, even while being there, emotionally speaking, you could invest into your mm, mental growth, mental development, building some mental skills. And I love the philosophy of objectivism because it's so reasonable, so rational. It takes the roots, just as the author, yeah, Mark, in his books, he speaks of values and metrics. The same is done by the author of objectivism, Ayn Rand. If you've heard of Atlas Shrugged, The Fountainhead, these are some of her best-selling novels. But she was not only a novelist, a writer, but she was also a philosopher. And she was very good. Her philosophy is very holistic. There are some philosophies that take only a few aspects of human life, like they talk only about reality and about ethics. But objectivism is very holistic because it speaks of reality, knowledge, ethics, aesthetics, politics. It's very holistic, very complete. You don't have to, and the good thing is, it's not a cult, it's not a religion. You don't have to just take everything she says for granted. In that philosophy, one of my favorite things is Ayn Rand says, the only absolute is reason. It means you have to reason yourself based on your context, on your situation. You don't have to believe, you don't have to take, her writings as taboo or as dogma and just go with it. You can question things. So that's it. Thank you for being with me. This live was kind of therapeutic for me, I think, and I hope it will help others. I'll also give this live to my relative, hoping that it might maybe ease his pain a little bit. And yeah, that's it. Okay. Have a good one. Subscribe and see you next time. Bye bye.